to WeakNet Laboratories. Okay. Audio monitor. Dial 2 for...
All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and start with Chapter 5, Digital Case Evidence Flow. What we're going to learn about this week deals primarily with the Electronic Discovery Reference Model, or the EDRM. We're going to go over our Chapter 5 PowerPoint, your case project for this week, and your forum project for this week, as well as your review and your chapter quiz. Don't forget, in order to go through the quiz, you've got to get at least a 70 on your review. And the review you can take as many times as you want. The quiz is a one-shot, one-go. For the forum, look at the EDRM. Describe and define EDRM as well as its inner parts like information governance, identification, preservation, collection, processing, review, and analysis, production, and presentation. Don't forget your MLA formatting for describing your references, as well as reply to at least one other student learner for full credit. You get 50 points for your post, 50 points for your reply. Your case project this week is going to be due through conducting a case project research, a 1 to 2 page double-spaced MLA formatting where you conduct an internet research on litigation courses which produce screened data for privileged information, but an inadvertent disclosure of that privileged data occurred despite the precautions. Choose a case and write a 1-page or 2-page report summarizing the case and the details of the inadvertent disclosure. State whether the court concluded that the producing party took reasonable steps, quote, quote, to avoid disclosure and software features were used for those preventive measures. All right, so those are your 2 assignments for this week, your discussion and your assignment itself. Don't forget your review and your quiz. With that, we're going to go straight into our main feature, which is going to be digital case evidence flow. All right. So your objectives here are going to be to describe the procedures for preserving digital evidence, explain how to use web-based repositories to process relevant data, and use software to identify and review relevant data. The EDRM process preservation stage is critical. The risk of the ESI can be altered inadvertently during this collection. It's like metadata. Metadata is very sticky. The goal of preservation stage is to isolate and protect the data and make sure it's legally defensible, meaning it hasn't been corrupted in any sense. Rule 26F says that it address any issues related to disclosure or discovery of electronic stored information. A lot of times, and you may have seen this in the forensic fails video, where one prosecutor or defense attorney, I can't remember which, revealed and changed the data. That would obviously violate this Rule 26F for civil, but I think they were looking into criminal, which would violate it in other senses. Becomes a big no-no, and they can obviously lose their bar license, which I think they went into during that video as well. All right, the Sedona principles, you guys went and did a full workup on that, have that duty in organizations to preserve that ESI, and it's commonly called a litigation hold. It's defined by the court in a way to suspend any routine document retention discretion policy to preserve that data or documents. All right, and it's the party that's responsible to preserve, in both parties technically, to preserve that and keep it in good faith. And to identify that relevant data, the responding party must use a variety of methods and use electronic tools to search for these and give data samples. Sanctions can be imposed if the responding party fails to preserve that data, all the way up to disbarment, as we saw. In EDRM, the identification stage is used to determine potential sources of relevant information. The meet and confer, Rule 26F, mandates that a meeting allows both parties to agree on what constitutes relevant data and what format it should be used for. Failing to meet this can result in court rulings that affect the case, either positive or negative, depending on which you are, prosecution or defense. Judge Scheindlin, well known for the decisions in the Zubalaki case, recommends that the 9 fields of metadata, the identifier, file name, custodian, source device, source path, production path, modified date, modified time, and time zone, is included. Also, with email, we're looking at sender, recipient, CC, BCC, date and time sent, subject, date, time received, and attachments are all part of the e-discovery portions. For identification and collection, courts prefer that requesting parties receive the e-discovery data in the same form with the other content. Example is if the responding party stores documents in a Microsoft Word format, but produces them in a Word, or I'm sorry, not Word. If they've got it in a Word and they produce it in a PDF, that original metadata is lost, as well as formatting changes, and it could be argued that something else is lost as well. This ESI data is specified as potentially relevant in the identification stage. So in litigation, teams that develop a collection strategy, prepare the collection plan, select the method, and carry out the plan. The important factor here is that you get technically qualified people that are used to manage that ESI data collection. The processing stage takes place after all relevant information has been collected. It's basically a way to reduce the volume of the electronic data. In some cases, it can be converted into a format that's suitable for review and analysis. The challenge here is getting both parties to agree on that format. The requests for data received via subpoena or e-discovery request is validated and done through the Sedona Principles and FRCP Rule 26F, basically that they discuss the issues of preserving and producing that data. The targeted scope requires configuring search criteria in the software tools used for collecting data, like expressions, proximity searches, keywords, or combination. Eliminating duplicate files both decrease the size of set data and the cost of the production process. And many e-discovery collection review tools have built-in features for reducing duplicates, identical names, dates, and then can be filtered and removed if necessary. Native or creative files are typically processed in 1 or 2 ways, depending on the agreed upon format. To continue the review stage or to convert it into a TIFF with optical character recognition or into searchable PDF files. Deciding which method is often based on the attorney's technical knowledge, skills, experience, or who they've contracted. The review platform and scope can also be factors as well. Native file review is done through industry experts who produce or push for that native file review. There's no need to spend time and money converting files. They're already searchable and have intact metadata. Opening a file might trigger hidden macros that can change the contents or the metadata. Discovery Attender and FTK are good tools to search through documents without altering metadata. The challenge is keeping yourself or keeping your employees or coworkers in that Discovery Attender or FTK. And they don't have organizational features, Discovery Attender or FTK. So native file review basically automates functions such as bait stamping, which is more efficient than manual organization using index card and notebooks. That's on the way out. Bait stamping is a logical number system that starts at 0 and identifies page and document. So accounting 00001 is the first page of the document for the accounting document. The Bates prefix denotes the document source, like ACCT. And here we see a specific one, we've got the Bates stamp down in the lower right-hand corner, Lay G3055. And you can see Kenneth Lay, executive researcher for Houston, Texas on Enron. So if you wanted to see an Enron document, here it is right here. Native file review. Many documents related to the discovery request might contain privileged or protected material. The unprotected portion must be produced, but the redaction helps omit that protected data. And that we use something that would do it without altering your metadata, because once you make a change to it, you officially became the owner of that file, or at least the last author of, and that may be a problem. It depends on your collection software as far as the redaction abilities. Redacting it basically makes it available for review and production. And they show altercation marks. Includes debate numbers and redaction marks, which we saw earlier. Here we've got our exhibit and the Bates number and the Bates stamp. It does not look like there are any redactions here. Not that I can tell of. You can see redactions are big black lines that you can't see anything through. Web-based repositories are a good option to review, and most can handle native file formats. The hosting service that manages this allows law firms to focus on the legal issues and leaves problems of technology and infrastructure and database administration to a third-party vendor. The web-based repository has clients transfer the data into it, maintain chain of custody, and coordinate the database configuration. Web-based repositories make it possible for attorneys to access the data quickly. Data can then be accessed anywhere as long as the attorney has internet access. iConnect is an example of web-based repository that can be hosted by a third party or in-house servers. Considered software as a service, SaaS product. Software as a service offers technical support and pay for improvements to address rapid changes in digital technology and legal review requirements. It's a growing field, software as a service. American Bar Association finds outsourcing acceptable because of software as a service. This web-based repositories is like cloud technologies. It's become explosive in the last 10 years. The attorney of record is ultimately responsible for reporting any problems resulting from outsource. The security concerns have always been raised because it basically is under the control of another organization. Security controls must be specified and include agreements between the service agency and the data owner. That's the person that contracted the software as a service, typically held through service level agreements or SLAs. Native file conversions with in-house repositories are usually done by attorneys that are comfortable with searchable PDF files. They file them with the court in PDF formats. The files converted to TIFF with optical character recognition have an advantage over PDFs, and most litigation and trial presentation tools are developed to use with TIFF and OCR. When discovery is converted to TIFF and OCR, you also get Bates stamping and redaction that are also features that are available. With in-house repositories, continued, tools that are capable of conversion must, like examples, ImageMaker, Discovery Assistant, LexisNexis Law, Access Data Discovery Cracker, IP Pro, eScan IT. They work with a variety of native file formats, and they're also capable of preserving the metadata, adding Bates numbers, performing searches, cracking passwords, unzipping files, and handling decryption. Again, the final processing output is a group of files: TIFF, image logs, load data files, or .dat. These files contain metadata, optical character recognition, extracted text, encoded information, operate as interlinking files, so one connects to the other, and so on. Clicking on a field in the database opens the corresponding image in the viewer application. So the Ken Lay document that we looked at earlier could be linked to another accounting form, which could then be linked to an HR form, and vice versa, and back and forth they would go. That software basically assists the court in not only decreasing the time for keeping documentation, but increasing the ability of both prosecution and defense in the grouping of, or in the aspects of them being able to present their case to the jury or present their case to the judge and vie for, competition for whatever it may be. If it's defense, they're trying to exonerate their client. If it's prosecution, they're trying to, push the incident on the perpetrator or suspect. All right. Native file conversions with in-house repositories are going to be loaded in Review platform that coded with the information similar to what was included in index cards in the past. The coding is the process of examining the documents, identifying names, dates, relevant terms, or phrases, resulting in information being entered in a database field, which can be done manually or automatically with the software. So we're looking at object coding using bibliographic data like sender-recipient data with a subjective coding like legal issues and evaluating redundancy, coding that's doing fielded searching and sorting, where words or data are not in the document but are important descriptors. When we talk about issue coding, we're talking about the narrative content and how it relates to the case issues. There might be a database field called issue, which could include the breach of contract, harassment for an employee, or a lawful termination of an employee. Full text searching is basically like you would search any Word, PDF, or anything else like that. Anything you search for has to be in the optically character recognized document. If it's not there, you're not going to pull anything. Excel, Access, and other formats don't lend themselves easily to TIFF conversion. The near native option is then used, where you convert TIFF that can be converted easily to preserve files in their native format. Native files are then linked to the database via the hyperlinks. The paper versions, all right, is basically scanning it in as a TIFF with optical character recognition and some other processing tools, typically done through a scanner interface. The quality assurance issue that a review team should monitor, because OCR is quite varied actually. Sometimes it doesn't pull the words in, doesn't pull pictures in. Abbreviated sections will sometimes try and autocorrect it to something else. The degree of autocorrection is quite catastrophic, in that if you EDRM, for example, could be taken as dream, just a misspelling. When that happens, you may have 50,000 documents to scan in to make it searchable, but once you do that, you have to go through those documents or have a team go through those documents. That's the quality assurance that they're talking about. Search methods and field recording must be adjusted to accompany the problems with OCR. Coding manuals are often created to improve the coder's consistency with data entry. The manuals become too large, the coding time slow down, increase costs, and a partial solution is to create authority lists, a drop-down list of coding responsibilities and responses tied to specific fields. An authority list eliminates the incorrect field of coding caused by typing mistakes. Legal review begins after the staff has finished preserving, identifying, collecting, and preserving the preliminary processing data, including duplication. So you want to eliminate duplications. That's what deduplication. The choice of review platform has been either web-based or desktop. The legal team reviews the preliminary data to figure out if the relevant data or relevant material and any material protected by attorney-client privilege and redaction happens at that stage. Despite these advances, drawbacks still exist, like failing to understand and use the technology correctly, poor communication, quality problems, staff turnover, outsourcing, linguistic issues during searching. Each case should begin with planning sessions, where reviewing the manual contains all the information needed to review by the team and reviewing the complaint as well as responses and early information. The legal team can put keywords, phrases, and players in context, can also question the relevance of similar words and not included in the searches. Lead attorney should explain the preliminary key strategies. The training and the review of the platform searches should occur Training should cover principles of fielded and full text searching, as well as buzzwords, keywords, Boolean logics, fuzzy stemming, proximity, and wildcard searching terms. Document reviewers should be given examples of potential search problems and solutions, such as poor quality OCRs, or some sort of workthrough on how to correct those issues. Reviewing that data can begin as training. Call it a first pass review. The data is divided into groups, and those groups then go through search and tag. And the purpose is to eliminate having to go through document by document. The search protocols used as a review filter with a lead attorney or project lead establishing those protocols. So now we go through sorting in relevant to non-relevant data. The first review should cover a small group of data, quality control metrics established. A manual review reveals any errors, search methods, training, communications that needs to be happening. And the first review should also reveal whether additional staff will be required. A document of 5 pages won't necessarily need the staffing of 50,000 pages. The rule of thumb is one junior attorney or paralegal can review 40 to 50 documents per hour, with a document consisting of 4 to 5 pages. So we're looking at 160 to 200 pages of documents per hour. That's what they're stating here. And they basically bill it at $100 to $250 an hour, and can get expensive quick. If they have to have 4 or 5 junior attorneys, look at how quick that jumps up. The review is often the most costly part of the discovery. Electronic or paper, it does not matter. The cost is the same. Only with paper, there's a cost of getting the documents into an e-format. Case documents are organized using tags and folders. These software tags and folders are based on specific criteria like privilege, responsive, non-responsive, or further review. On 5.9 in your book, you'll notice the IP Pro Eclipse screenshots of that. Attorney-client and work product privileges is done during the second pass review. It's to identify materials that fall under attorney-client or work product privileges. ACP, attorney-client privileges, protect communication between attorney and client, and work product protect work attorney has done representing the client, like impressions, tactics, strategies, opinions, and thoughts. You don't want to give that to your defense or prosecution. So that's where the work product comes in. Privilege review inadvertently produces privilege materials to the opposition if you're not careful. Clawback agreements are negotiated during the meet and confer and later used to identify and exclude materials being used by the opposing counsel. Using personnel with certification and review tools to conduct the review process can improve that party's due diligence position. Protected discovery is any case material that needs to be shielded during the legal process. The review during the privilege review stage. Examples can be trade secrets, software code algorithms, recipes like the Kentucky Fried Chicken recipe. Example of the protected discovery in places is witness identities, the phone numbers, addresses. Filing documents under seal keeps them from public access. After all review and quality assurance steps are complete, documents are produced to the requested party in the agreed upon format. A description of privileged or protected discovery should be entered in a privileged log. A log should be produced along with remaining discovery. The objective of a privileged log is to disclose information to the opposition about what has been specified as privileged and why. So in that privilege log, you include type, authors, recipients, dates, time, description, subject matter, and attorney-client privilege, work product privilege, and what privilege is claimed. The most review platforms can generate these reports automatically and contain its information. For arbitration and mediation, civil courses are settled before trial because of arbitration and mediation. A lot of the times, you as an end user will sign into arbitration and mediation agreements. The most notable case I can think of is the big data breach that happened with the credit reporting company Equifax, the first wave that came out had a mediation agreement in it when you signed up for the service on free credit reporting. So that got struck down. It's just one of those things that show up. Can be tricky if you don't read the fine print. An arbitrator is the impartial person chosen by both parties to solve the dispute. Both prosecution and defense agree on this one person, and the one person will then go back and forth between the two, hear evidence, make decisions. The mediator is the person that brings them together in some form of an agreement. They don't look at evidence. They don't make decisions. They just try and make defense agree with prosecution agree with defense. Things can happen there where, let's say, for example, if you were to sue Equifax, that you would be entered into that arbitration mediator. The mediator would look at that material. The arbitrator would basically look at the e-discovery, make recommendations that are binding. And we're set to summary, where we're going through the meet and confer parties, preserve and production methods. The duty to preserve obligates the responding party to evaluate the procedures and methods are best suited for preserving the data, the preservation order. The targeted discovery scopes use search criteria that include search expressions, proximity searches, keywords, date ranges, file types, email addresses. Web-based repositories are a good option for law firms and corporations. Paper discovery is part of almost every case and often adds time and cost for manual and automated subjective or objective coding. Despite these precautions, attorney, client, and work product privileges materials might be produced inadvertently, and civil cases can be settled before trial using arbitration and mediation. That finishes off our chapter 5. We're coming into case studies in our midterms soon. For case studies, there won't be much lecture, but we will go over what's expected of us during this time. In midterms, we'll be looking at as well. But I won't expect you guys to watch much for week 7 or week 8, the midterms, which kind of blend into week 7 depending on our time frame.